I'm joined by a special guest today. He is an NBA trainer that has worked with a ton of different players. He's worked with Victor Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert, Nick Claxton, Trae Young, Tyrese Maxey, many others. And we had to bring him on after Wemby's first game to talk about how he looked, maybe some of his preseason action. I am joined by Tim Martin. Tim, how are you?
Hey, man, I appreciate you having me, man. Congrats on the new show.
Thank you so much. So, for people that don't know, you've been working with Wemby since 2020. Initially, you guys started doing some workouts virtually over Zoom, and then he's now obviously worked out with you a bunch in person and some of your other players. Let's talk about his first game. So, he finishes with 15 points, 5 rebounds, 3 threes, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Shot 6 of 9 from the field, 3 of 5 from 3. Definitely seemed like in the fourth quarter, he kind of felt more comfortable and was scoring a bit more. What were your takeaways from Wemby's NBA debut?
Man, I think the biggest takeaway is just, it's just going to take time. I mean, obviously he had a good game, but I think, what a lot of people what they tend to overlook is the atmosphere. I don't know if you saw a lot of the clips before the game even started, but I mean, the fan base was just electric in there. It felt like the NBA finals, but I think just for him, figuring out his role on the team, not just with him, but everybody else on the roster, allowing people to get in the groove. I mean, it's like this. It's nothing different than any other NBA team or situation. I think as an NBA rookie, for him, it's just going to take time. But he does a great job of keeping his head on the right track and doing what he can defensively and offensively.
What were some things you saw during the preseason? I know he had that game against the Heat that, the clip went viral and everyone's thinking, how do you stop this guy, especially once he's in his prime? I mean, he's out there blocking shots left and right. He's draining threes, step backs. I mean, it just looked like he could do whatever he wants out there. What were some of your takeaways from the preseason?
I think it was great, man, just for him to be able to find his rhythm and start to build out his identity as a player. Clearly he's been an alien, so to speak, since day one in his skill set. But I think really understanding how to continue to get to his spots, finding his rhythm and timing on his shooting from the outside. He found holes in the defense very early, off the ball too, flashing, cutting, doing a little bit of everything. So I expect him to continue to have success throughout the season and just continue to learn, man. That's really what all this is about. Is as long as he's learning something new every practice, in every game, those takeaways is just going to make him an overall better player in the long run.
I think you said in an article last year with Yahoo Sports that he could be one of the best, if not the best defender in the NBA from day one, just with his length and ability to block shots. You've even seen it, in the preseason and last night. There's times when players think they have a one-on-one, and then out of nowhere, he just comes and blocks a shot. Kyrie, his first block was like that. You could tell Kyrie wasn't even thinking about him, and then he gets a block. Do you think the defense is going to translate quicker just because, it does come so easy for him with the length and athleticism? What are your thoughts on kind of his defense and how that will translate?
Yeah, well, to me, I mean, he's always been a great off-ball defender. Clearly, he could cover sideline to sideline, or he could eat a lot of space very quickly on dribble penetration. But, for Victor, he's always been interested on defense. And I think a lot of players, especially young guys coming into this league, you have to be interested in playing defense. And with his wingspan and his size, even with his hands, there's a lot of things that Victor does that doesn't even show up on the box score, and clearly he's going to get his deflections and block shots, but his presence alone is forcing teams to move the ball to one side of the floor and getting guys to think, about shooting the ball. I mean, I think you saw Klay Thompson during the Warriors game, after that block shot that Victor had on, the next few shots he had to speed up a little bit. So when we talk about controlling tempo as coaches, you want players like Victor that could really shift momentum points into your team's favor and really control spacing just because of how big he is.
Yeah, and to your point about him caring about defense and wanting it, in that same article by Kristen Peak, she talks about how Tyrese Maxey was training with Wemby, and Wemby asked him, will you play one-on-one with me, and I'll just stay on defense the entire time. And Tyrese is like, I've never had a player ask me to just play defense against me in one-on-one, but he wanted to keep trying to stop him and guard him, which I think is so cool. I mean, the fact that he works on his defense so much and cares about it, I think that's great. You want to see that if you're a coach. That's a lot for anyone, especially a teenager. What are your thoughts on his mental makeup and how he's kind of dealing with that?
I think he's fine. He's doing a great job, just like always. I think he's used to it, because with who he is as a person, he does a phenomenal job of compartmentalizing what comes at him. He's a very structured person, but it's a real testament not just to him, but with his circle, with his agents, with Bona and Jeremy, and his marketing team with Issa and all the people that are around him, along with his family, his mom and dad. They do a phenomenal job of keeping his head on straight and, tell him what he needs to hear, not just what he wants to hear. And so when you have a humble circle like that, and then obviously the Spurs are an outstanding organization, it can be a distraction. I think it's human nature for anybody, to get this amount of attention and it not kind of deter you at times. But he's a constant professional, and I think it's just who he is in terms of his old soul. He knows what he needs to accomplish, and he's a very driven individual. So I don't ever see that, becoming an issue for him, because out of anybody, he's the one guy in this world that could handle it.
You mentioned at the top, or I mentioned at the top, just about how initially he started training with you over Zoom and kind of watching you do different things, and he would replicate it. He was 16 years old at that time, if I believe. How did you guys initially link up? Because, he was obviously in France. How did you guys initially meet? And can you kind of tell that story for people that don't know your relationship?
Yeah. So I've been working alongside his agency, ComSport, which is based in Europe. And they have players like Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, and all the top players from Europe really go through their agency. And they do a phenomenal job. It's like family, with Bona and Jeremy leading the way. So working with their players prior, kind of got me into the spiel, and they'd always talk about, hey, we got this new kid coming up the ranks. His name's Victor Wembanyama. And so you got to take a look at him. And so that's just kind of how the relationship started. And then COVID happened. And during that time, we had to figure out a way to really converse and interact. And so thank God for Zoom. That was kind of the new wave of virtual workouts, so to speak. So that's how we started. And then, did a lot of film breakdowns and communication. And I think that's really where our relationship started, was teaching through the communication, getting him to understand the language of basketball here in the States, and understanding the movements and the nuances that he's going to need as a big man in this league.
I feel like the first time I heard about Victor was when the clip of him going up against Rudy kind of went viral, and people were like, man, this guy's making Rudy look smaller, and he's holding his own despite being so young. When did you first realize that Victor might be, a generational prospect, a special player?
Probably during the finals of the, I think it was the U19 game against Chet and the USA team. So I was working also with Mike Miles, who was the point guard for the USA team. And I think Victor was still, maybe 17, playing against guys that were older than him. And they just battled it out. And so, seeing Chet, obviously he's one of the best up and coming players in high school here in the States, to see him and Victor go toe to toe with each other. And it's not even so much about that particular game. That was kind of the stamp for me that I was like, hey, this kid could be special. But just watching all of his clips before and how cerebral and agile he was in his movements, at 7'4", 7'5", you just don't see guys that are that fluent in their coordination, so skill set for me as a trainer is easy to coach, but what's difficult is mindset and how people move. And that's just a natural ability that Victor has. And so when you bring the mindset and you have somebody that's very well coordinated and understands their body, adding the skill set is the easy piece. The last piece of the puzzle is pretty simple.
His flexibility blows my mind too. There was that video that Bleacher Report shared. I tweeted it the other day where he's doing splits and it's things that you should never be able to do if you're, 7 feet tall, much less his size. I was blown away by, his ability to do splits and just, the way he moves, the flexibility is insane. Is that something that you guys have worked on over time? Is that something that's just natural for him? Because that was really shocking to me. That's maybe crazier than anything he's done on the court, which is pretty telling.
Yeah. Now, if I could do the splits, man, it would just be a bad side. My hips is torn up, my knees is bad, so I'm not even remotely trying to take any credit for anything. His trainer Guillaume is one of the best in the world at what he does. Working on his body, and they've been working together for some years now. And it's a testament to his team. And again, Victor is just a very well-disciplined player that is very in tune with himself along with his body. And so it's pretty impressive because I can't even remember. I don't think I've ever attempted to do the splits in my life. So, kudos to him and staying, flexible.
Yeah, watching that, I was kind of like wincing, like, I can't even imagine doing it, but it's crazy. I mean, it seems like, he's super flexible, doing all the right things, not only to be able to dominate at this level, but also stay healthy. It's great to see. What are some conversations you guys have had as far as maybe goals for this season, or what would be a successful rookie year for him? Have you guys talked about that at all?
Yeah, some of the things that we talk about is just usually between us.
Yeah.
Whether short term, long term, but for him, he knows what he needs to do, and I think it's just you have to allow yourself room to grow. Everybody's always going to put their expectations on what these NBA players should be, or what they should be on and off the court. But I think for Victor, he knows what he wants for himself, and he knows what he needs to do game in and game out. I think the main priority in all of this is just being consistent. Consistent with his routine, developing healthy patterns on and off the court, and then continuing to educate himself and engage in conversation with Coach Pop and the staff, and just continue to mentally be prepared to try to get a good push to make the playoffs and try to extend and expand his overall game.
How beneficial is it being in San Antonio with not only Coach Pop, but also, some legendary players that can be role models, maybe Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. I know he already kind of has a relationship with Tony from everything overseas, but how beneficial is that? And then also the supporting cast seems kind of perfect for him as well. That landing spot, I think, couldn't have been better. Can you kind of speak to just how perfect it is for him?
Yeah, well, I think, I'm from Texas, so I'm going to be a little biased. This is home for not just him, is myself too. But and it's in the South, is the Southern hospitality, and San Antonio has been a great smaller market since they entered the NBA, and you alluded to some of the greatest players at their position all time, and Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Ginobili. And then you got Pop, all-time winningest coach. So I think when you have a nice stew of success, what you're dealing with is people that have walked the walk and talked the talk. So experience is very prevalent to anybody's success in terms of mentorship or what have you. So with the experience that he's around, and then with the circle that's been put together for Victor, there is no limit. Some people say sky's the limit, but for him, there's just no limits to how far it could go.
Yeah, the fact that you're there too. I mean, I texted you on lottery night. I mean, that also is so perfect. You're right in his backyard, and you're able to help him and be around. I mean, it feels like the perfect situation for him all around. So last question, you kind of just mentioned it there, but if he's able to realize his full potential, I know LeBron has said it, Giannis has said it, that, he could be one of the best players of all time. What do you think his ceiling is? I don't think we've seen a player with his upside, just given the full package and length, athleticism, everything. What do you think his ceiling or his untapped potential is?
There's no telling. I think it's endless, and I'll put it to you like this: anytime you try to describe somebody like him, that's when he just has that it factor. When you can't even really put it into words on, what his potential is, it's very high, it's unlimited, but it's going to go above and beyond to where it's not even related to basketball. I think just who he is as a person. If you listen to some of the interviews he's done, and just when you actually talk to Victor, he's just one of the most fascinating individuals I've ever personally met. And so I think his influence on the game of basketball will go above and beyond just what he's doing on the court. He's just a very special, unique player and person.
Last question. Your Cowboys are 4-2. How you feeling about your Dallas Cowboys?
Man, I'm hurting, man. I gotta. We play every Sunday. I'm going to therapy on Monday. Just for the Cowboys, and the only thing that's allowing me to get through this agony, even though we are 4-2, is that the Texas Rangers are in the World Series. So
there you go.
We won the pennant, and we in the World Series. So hopefully we'll bring the championship home. And then in the Cowboys, I just want us to get to January, and then maybe we could revisit that question. So we'll see how it goes.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Good luck to your Rangers. Everyone, make sure you guys follow Tim on social media. TimMartin_TX does a fantastic job. As I mentioned, has trained a ton of NBA players. You should be following him. And yeah, thanks so much for your time, Tim.
No, Alex, thank you, man, and congrats on the new show.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, like I said, good luck to your Rangers. Hopefully next time we talk, we got some celebrating to do.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Take care.
All right, man.
I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Prize Picks. If you haven't tried daily fantasy sports on Prize Picks, you are missing out. Here's how it works. You pick 2 to 6 players and whether they'll score more or less points than their Prize Picks projection. If you're right, you win big. You can win 25 times your money on any entry. At Prize Picks, you aren't competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. Prize Picks offers projections on every sport: NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, and more. You can mix and match players from different sports, so you could have Stephen Curry and Patrick Mahomes in the same entry, for example. If you download Prize Picks today and use the promo code RUNNING, they'll double your deposit up to $100. That's promo code RUNNING, and they'll double your first deposit up to $100. It takes 30 seconds or less to build a lineup. To show you how easy it is, I'll build a lineup right now. All right, so let's go over to Prize Picks. They have a ton of different stats here: points, rebounds, assists. You can combine different stats. I'm going to go with assist for tonight. Let's go Trae Young. Where's Trae? There he is. More than 9 assists. And then I'm going to go down here. And let's go Luka. More than 7.5 assists. Let's do a $10 entry. Just like that, we're good to go. Thanks again to Prize Picks for sponsoring this episode. Use that promo code RUNNING, like running up the score, and they will double your first deposit up to $100. That is the promo code RUNNING.